Good morning, folks. I thought I should make a video responding to some of the comments that I've been getting on the first video I uploaded, which is on atheism. And now that has clearly ruffled up some feathers, and some people have chosen to comment. I'll take a look at some of those comments and respond to the ones. Let's have a look. Nitish says, we tend to believe in material things, and that's why we tend to believe in a material God. Material God absolutely does not exist. So are you saying that an immaterial God exists? Convince me of that. Just give me some reason to believe. I'm not even saying evidence, because I know you're gonna say evidence is material. Give me some reason why I should believe a God that's not material exists. If this God is not material as you say, how did you come to know if it's his or her existence? Here's a comment by Sheel Badras that says, I agree that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So you're claiming that I'm saying that there is no God because there is no evidence for God. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I lack a belief in God. It's very different from saying that I believe God doesn't exist. Because again, that's a claim that I'm making, and I need to provide evidence for that. It's impossible to provide evidence that God doesn't exist. It's not possible to provide evidence for a negative statement. I'm not claiming that there is no God. I'm claiming that I don't believe in God. Now, here's the thing. I don't need to provide evidence for God not existing until you provide me evidence for why you believe in him. In the absence of that, I'm free not to believe. That's all I'm claiming. That's all I'm saying. I think everyone should be free to be an atheist, theist, or agnostic. Everyone should be free to believe what they want is something I agree with. But the problem is when your beliefs start infringing on the rights of others, that's where you need to draw a line. So the problem with the religion, at least in today's world, is that a lot of people are not just happy with privately believing something themselves, because they wanna, their beliefs entail that all these other people are infidels, they need to be killed, or these other groups, they are impure, you shouldn't live amongst them, whatever they touch you should not touch. All these are beliefs that come along with religion, and quite often religion is never harmless. There is some harm in these kinds of beliefs. Ideally, if your beliefs are perfectly private, 100% your private beliefs, feel free to believe anything. But unfortunately, the world is not like that. Almost all knowledge that we gather is not by our own, but someone else, and we believe it. So if by reading the experience of people who have seen God, you also start to believe that in God, there is no shame or illogical thing in it. My brother or sister, please, punctuation, please. What I have to say about that is, see, when you say that you're believing the experience of someone who says they've seen God, what is the difference between believing that and believing it when someone lies? An alternate dimension exists, an alternate world exists where there are monsters and flying horses and unicorns and flying pigs, whatever. What is the difference between believing something like that when someone says it and believing something like someone who says that they've seen God? What is the difference between that? What I would say is believe things that are reasonable, not believe things blindly based on faith. When someone says the continent of Antarctica exists, I haven't seen Antarctica. I'm sure you believe it exists. I believe it exists. Why is this belief okay while believing something that a person says about God not okay? So beliefs have to be reasonable. The reason here that I'm talking about is evidence and repeatability of observation. See, this is an observation you can make yourself if you so choose. If you want to, you can fly down there to that continent and see it exists. In the case of someone saying that God exists, how can you verify that observation that the person has made other than take his word for it? That's a difference between a reasonable belief and blind faith. If you want to give it a try, there is no harm in it. I have read experiences of people who have seen God to be blissful and peaceful, but I've never read such an experience from an atheist. Therefore, if you want to give it a try, there's no harm in it. You have nothing to lose, but maybe some things to gain. Do not feel like to believe in God, there is still no shame in it. We should be free to choose it ourselves. See, again, some of these things like you have nothing to lose but only things to gain. I think you're focusing only on the positives of religion. Calling it positives is a huge overstatement. You have to always think about these positives, let's say some psychological comfort that might come out of religious beliefs. What is the cost of giving people that psychological comfort? They end up in blind beliefs, they end up having a skewed perspective of the world, and worst of all, they end up forcing other people to live lives according to their own beliefs. Yeah, those costs are what I'm not okay with. We have a comment here from Priya Lijus that says, one argument is that why should an atheist live a moral life? Because they are not accountable to anyone. By this statement, you are also saying that the only reason a theist lives a moral life is because of fear in God, fear of God. Like if God were not there, they would go out into the streets murdering and doing all kinds of crimes. See, you have to ask yourself, are you a good person only because you fear God? Or are you a good person because you're a good person? The assumption is that not having this belief in God would automatically make you a bad person, which is terribly wrong. Comment from Priyanshu Chand saying, I just realized your surname is Radha Krishna. Since you're an agnostic atheist, well, you are logical, so I'm assuming that's funny. Yeah, Priyanshu, I didn't choose my name. I didn't choose Pranav, I didn't choose Radha Krishnan. By the way, it's Radha Krishnan, one word, and that's my dad's name. In Kerala, a lot of people use their dad's name as a surname. Like you said, I didn't choose either of those words as part of my name. I agree, it's funny, but what about someone like Harris Sultan? I'm sure he didn't choose his name either, but he's an atheist. It's just like that. Genesis 1:1 says, agreed based on her point, but I have 3 questions based on the points you've covered in this video. First question, what evidence or kind of evidence is considered as convincing evidence? I'll give you an example. You guys remember Patanjali's coronal, right? For COVID. When that came out with a study done on 10 people. Not 10, I'm sorry, on a few people where they found evidence for its effectiveness in helping with COVID. The problem is that study was extremely flawed. It didn't account for a lot of biases, it didn't account for age groups and gender properly. A lot of problems that medical trials are supposed to take care of was not taken care of in that study. Now, would you consider that as evidence? Hey, they saw something, they observed something, and they presented it in a paper. I would consider it as evidence. But am I convinced that by that evidence? No, that study wasn't done properly, hence the conclusions it drew do not convince me. Now, that's what I call convincing evidence. Evidence that's undeniable, that doesn't have all these reasons, all these biases that could influence the final conclusion. That's what I call convincing evidence. And the second question, what evidence is considered extraordinary evidence? Now, the first and the second question, they don't really have, their answers are kind of overlapping. The problem is people take any evidence or any reasoning as a reason for their beliefs, and a lot of times they don't take into account biases, these fallacies. Evidences are easily deniable. That's what I'm saying. So an extraordinary evidence in that sense is something that is undeniable. It's basically the same as convincing evidence. Finally, why saying that God exists is an extraordinary claim? See, would you agree that if I said unicorns exist, that's an extraordinary claim? Would you agree that if I said ghosts exist? Would you agree that if I said flying whales exist, that's an extraordinary claim? Those claims are exactly the same as claiming that God exists. The only difference is a lot of people around you believe in the existence of God. Should that make the claim any less extraordinary? It shouldn't, right? That's it. That's the only difference. The difference between these claims is how widespread belief in these claims is. Something that you can't see, touch, no evidence for existing is an extraordinary claim, no matter what that thing is. That's it. I don't want to make this video too long. I'll respond to more comments like this. So feel free to comment below the video if you agree, disagree. I'll see you in the next one.